Hi everyone, welcome to the Coding Channel. Today is the 27th episode of our Java programming tutorial series. And in this episode, we are going to talk about passing one-dimensional arrays to methods in Java. This and more when we come back. Can we pass array to method? The answer is yes. Okay, so let's try to answer this the following task. Okay, the first one, we are going to pass the array to a method to fill an array with 10 integer values and then prompt the user to enter 10 integer values and store it in an array. Okay, that's our first task. Okay, so let's try to, for example, inside of our main method, we have a number array here having 10 elements. We all know this already, okay, since we've discussed an array. So this episode now will incorporate your knowledge in arrays and then your knowledge also in methods. Okay, now how are we going, the first question, how are we going to pass arrays to method? Okay, like for instance, since we have a number array here with empty, so all the 10 elements are still empty. After this declaration in line number 28, we only have a number array having 10 elements, but each elements are empty. Okay, so how are we going to pass? We will call for example, a fillArray. That's the name of our user-defined array that we are going to create. And then we will pass the number array. So the syntax on how are we going to pass the array is as simple as this. You just need to specify the name without any square bracket here. Okay, but we all know that the number array is an array. Okay, since we declared this already. And then I'm going to just, for example, have a void, since the purpose of the fill array is just to get the user input, 10 integers coming from the user, and then we will just store it in a number array. But this time, the one who will do it is our user defined method fill array, and I want to have a return type of void there. Okay, and let's say for example this one is a non-static method, so that it will be we will review the way on how we call a non-static method from a static method main. Okay, so for instance, if we are going to call the fill array in here, okay, how are we going to call that? But before that, let me finish this heading first. Okay, since we are expecting an array, okay, it's like the main method is passing the all the elements of number array empty, and then our task, the task of fill array here, is to fill it with the user input. So the 10 integers will be coming from the user. Okay, so how do we match the parameters here? Since we pass the array, how are we going to get that one? Okay, or to catch that one? Okay, since the main, we are trying now to pass the number array to us. Okay, so actually we can make sure that it's the same data type. So we will also declare an array here. Okay, we can use the same name number array here, but we can also have a different name. It doesn't matter. Okay, it's the same array actually. Okay, so I'll just use another a different name here, so that we will have a comparison later. Okay, so we have a local array int num array here, but as of this time we don't know the size of that num array, unless the main method will pass us the array name. Okay, so that's it. So we have now the fill array int num array. But take note that we are calling a non-static method from static main. So for us to call the fill array, we need to instantiate an object of this class, which is the passing array to method class. This is our class name. So we will instantiate first an object here, and then for example we have let's say pass is equal to new passing array method. So this is the first way, okay, that we are going to do if we are going to call a non-static method. And then we will use this pass object here in our method call, method call, by just specifying the object name and then dot, okay, dot operator and then the array name. So that's the correct way to call a fillArray, which is a void method in a non-static method. Okay, so match number array that will be received by the num array parameter that we have declared here. So both are integers, so that's so far so good. Okay, now the next step, since the task of the fillArray is to get the user input, so of course we will instantiate a scanner class here. For example, we have a scan is equal to new scanner, and then system dot in. Okay, and then after that, what's next? We are going to ask the user to enter 10 integers. Okay, for example, we have a system dot out dot print. Okay, so let's say enter. So we will put this inside of a loop. It's either for loop or while loop. So better use a for loop, since this one is we're working on array. So enter what? Enter number. Okay, since we will put this inside of an array, enter number 1, number 2, number 3. So this will depend on the variable. So for example, we have a counter variable. Okay, enter number 1, something like that. I'll just have to make a for loop here. So for in counter, for example, is equal to 0. Counter is less than what? Num array. That's the name of our local array here. That length, and then counter plus plus. Now, what have you noticed? Did you notice something? Okay. I have noticed. What I have noticed? Okay. If you can see here, okay, the main method only passed the array, but it did not pass the size of an array, which is in this case is 10. Okay. So how come that we know that the fillArray knows the size of that array? Because we are expecting that aside from the array, for example, there's another parameter here, for example, just to pass the size. But in this case, yes, we can do this, but this one is we can also pass an array, and we can also the length of that array that has been passed. Okay, without specifying the size there. Okay, why? What is the explanation behind? Okay, so let me educate you. Okay, note, when an array is passed as an argument, its memory address location, or should I say its reference, is used. So in this way, the contents of an array can be changed inside of a method, since we are dealing directly with the actual array and not with a copy of the array. Note also that you will need to be careful when sending an array to a method. Remember that any changes made to the array in the method will change the data in the original array. Be sure that your intention is to change the original data, okay, thus losing the original data. Okay, so in other words, even if you don't specify here the size of an array, it's like we are not, if you are talking of passing an array, we are not talking of passing a value here. There's a big difference between the two. Okay, this time when main method pass the number array to num array, for example, okay, uh, we are passing the reference or the memory location of that. So whenever we for example modify the values of a num array here, we are actually modifying the actual array of a number array there. Okay, that's a good thing here. Just take note of that. It's a very important. Okay, again, take note that if an array is being passed to a method, okay, don't treat that as a value that you are just passing a value. Okay, this time we are passing the memory location, okay, or the reference, okay, not the value. Okay, that is why we know the size of that array even if we are inside of a user-defined method. Okay, so let's continue first for you to better understand later. Okay, now we have a counter inside of our loop. Okay, so this time now, the this output statement will ask the user to enter. For example, I'll just have to put here enter number one. So I just have to put let's say one here. So enter number one, so that if the value of counter is 0, so the first output statement is enter number one, number two, and number three. Okay, if the user have entered number one, for example, so our task is to get, right? To get that user input from the user. Okay, and how do we get that? By using the, again, we know this already, scan that next in. Okay, and where are we going to store the value that has been entered by the user? Okay, for the first input, for example, we will store that in the first element. Okay, so what's the name of our array? We have num array. Okay, num array sub 0. Okay, I don't know why I put the fix there. We will use the counter variable, and then during the first iteration the value of counter is 0, right? So num array counter is equal to scan that next. Okay, so that's it. That's our goal. Okay, take note that every time the user have entered, okay, the I mean the value, okay, number one, number two, number three, up to number 10. Okay, so using for loop here, we store that inside of an array, a num array. Even if we use num array here, again, it seems that we are storing values to the number array in main. Okay, later we'll try. But for now, let's try to run this one so that, okay, there is a syntax error here. And we forgot to just put the plus plus here. Okay, okay, so we just have to run again. Okay, so now we have enter number 01. Okay, for example, we have 4. Okay, why 1 1? Counter 1 1. It's because, okay, it's a very good, again, I just have to stop this one first. Okay, we need to put this inside of the parentheses so that before we display, okay, the value of counter is will add 1. Okay, if it's 0, so add 1, that will become 1, not a 0 1. Okay, so let's try to run again. Okay, so let's try to fill. Okay, so there you go. So enter number 1. Okay, I don't like the output again. Let's try another. Okay, so enter number 1, and then after that we will just have to put a colon here and then the space. Let's try another. Okay, looks good now. Yeah, that's the output that I want. Enter number 1, for example. I have 9. Enter number 2, for example, 8. Number 3, 5, 7, 6, 4, and then 3, and then 2, and then 1. And the last number, for example, we have 10. Okay, 4, number 10. Okay, so that's it. because that's the only work that the only task that we need to do in the first problem. Okay, so we pass the array to a method to fill an array with 10 integer values. Then we already prompt the user to enter 10 integers, and then we store it in an array. Okay, so our next task is to pass the array to a method to print all the values stored in an array elements. Okay, so that's the good thing of using a method here. Why? Because we separate now, or we divide now the task. So the only task of fillArray is just to get the user input from the user and then store the values to array elements. So if you want to print, so main method will call another method again to print out the values of a number array that has been filled by the fillArray method. Okay. Okay. So let's try to for example, the main will call another array. Let's call it print array, and then we will pass again the number array. But take note this time, after before this method call, okay, if this one is the method call number 2, for example, okay, this time around the number array has a values already in each array elements, just because of this method call in line number 30. Okay, so we will add now another method, which is we call it print array. Okay, it's still a void method, uh, print array, and then since main method pass the number array again, so we will just have declare another here. Okay, for example, let's call it my array. Okay, again we can use the same name here, but I just want to have a different name. Okay, so it's up to you if we use the same name, but what I'm trying to say is yeah, that is still possible. But for me, just to avoid confusion and just for you to also to see that even if we are using a different array names, because these arrays are local arrays inside of this array. For example, we have a num array there, and then we are my array here. But whatever modifications that we are going to do inside of this array will take effect on the final output of the final values of the number array, because we are talking of the same array, since yeah, the main method pass the entire array, okay, in our method. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so for example, what's the again, let's analyze this. What's the goal of this? The print array is to print all the values of an array that has been filled by the fillArray method. Okay, so our task is very simple, just to print. Okay, so for example, we have an output statement, system that print. Let's say for example, we have a text here, values are. Okay, for example, something like that. And then we have a lot of episodes regarding array, or from one-dimensional to two-dimensional to jagged array. Okay, I'm sure you know already how to access array elements using for loop, right? It's very easy. It's like having this one. Okay, so maybe I just have copy this just to speed up our explanation, and then I'll just change the num array to my array. I'm sorry, num array that length, and then I still need to use the counter here, for example. Okay, now this time we are not going to assign, but we are going to print. So we will put the system.out print, for example, inside of our loop, and we specify the array name, that is my array, which is a local here, my array sub counter, index counter. Okay, that's the correct word. Okay, my array index counter, I'll just have to put as space, for example, in our output, and then That's it. So for example, my array is sub 0, sub 1, sub 2, sub 3, up to sub 9. And then I'll just have to put, for example, here, println. Okay, that's it. Okay, so let's try now. So again, line number 3, ask the user to enter 10 integers and store in an array. Line number 31 now are accessing the elements of an array. So let's try to run and we'll see. Okay, so we have now. So first is, again, we need to store. Let's say, for example, we have 1 or let's say 12, 34, 56, 78, 43, 21, 67, 88, 99, and then let's say 100. Okay, and then once you press the enter key, okay, so these are the values now of an array. 12, 34, 56, 78. Okay, all the elements of an array has been displayed here. So these are now the output. It only proves that based on what we did here, if you pass an array to a method, then if you pass the entire array, okay, an empty array, we can pass it using here, but we are not passing the value, we are passing the reference so that whatever modifications that we have here will affect the final values of an array elements. And that's what we did in here, okay? And the good thing is we just divide the task, okay? This one only store the user input, and then this one only print. Okay, what do you think is the next task that we are going to solve? Okay, and I hope that before we move on to the third task, I hope that you know you learned a lot, okay, from this lesson. Okay, our next task is to pass the array to a method again, but this time it will add up the values and return the average. Okay, so we will just pass that one to a method and we will just get the average. So in this example, no original data in the array will be altered, okay? And then the array information will simply be used to find the average. Oh yes, because you will just have to pass the array elements and then just get the, okay, so let's try. Okay, so let's try to add another method call here. Okay, after we pass to fillArray, okay, and then we print out all the values of an array, we will pass that array again just to compute for the average. Okay, then find the average of, let's say, 10 numbers input. We will just still pass the number array, okay, to this one. Okay, but this time I will let the to display, because the task of the find average, for example, that we are going to create is just to find the average of 10 numbers input and then return that average value to main. Okay, so meaning I just want to show you the value returning method this time. Okay, just also of course to review, because our last episode talks about method overloading, and at the same time the episode 25 we talk about the value returning method. So if you haven't watched it yet, I suggest that you watch it prior to this one or after this, for example, for you to have a better understanding on that matter. So again, what I'm trying to do here now is I'm trying to display the output. I'm trying to call the find average here. Okay, so this is the valid syntax on how we call the find average method, for example, and then we pass the entire array. Okay, but this time this array already have values in each element, and then after that we will print. So our task, so for example, this is now the method call for our task number 3. Okay, so just to find the average. Okay, so this time let's try. We have a string find array. Okay, for example, I don't know why find array. Find average. Find average. Again, take note that every time we name our method, by convention that you name your method as like a verb. Okay, let's say find average. Okay, it's like an action word. Okay, so or we have the print what? Print array, fill array, find average, find average. Okay, so since main will pass the number array again, so we will have an integer again here. For example, what? Let's say num array also. And then let's try. So we have now string. We are expecting, to return a string value. We will have a okay. We need to have a for loop. Why? Let me copy this one. Okay, we'll have a for loop here. We're talking of num array because our local variable is num array that length counter plus plus, and then that's it. Okay. Why I have a for loop here? Of course, we need to add. Okay, we need to add the values of each array elements. That is 10 elements. So we have now the for loop here. Okay, to have an assignment statement. Okay, so what's that assignment statement? So let me have let's say for example, if it's an integer, let's say we have a double here. Let's say double total equals let's say there's an initial value of 0.0, and then we will assign it. Okay, total is equal to total plus or something like that, and then we will add, because we will add the values of an array. So we'll start from num array sub our index counter, array index counter. Okay, that's it. It's simple it is. So yeah. Again, this one's total is equal to total plus num array index sub 0, sub 1, sub 2, sub 3. So after getting the sum, okay, so the total sum is in the total variable now. Okay, the total. And then how are we going to return? So we can just have simply return that one. For example, since this one is string, so we'll have a string here. For example, the average is, okay, the average is, and then plus, okay, we will have a string concatenation, so that is already string, plus what? Let's say we have total, but this time the total we need to divide. Okay, total divided by the num array length, right, which is 10. Num array dot length. Okay, for example, then that's it. So let's try. So we will just divide this first. I'll just put it here. So total div num array. So that's it. Let's try to run now. Okay, there you go. We have an error. Main static reference to non-static. Okay, we forgot to put pass here because we are still calling a non-static method. Okay, so run. Okay, enter number 1. Let's try a smaller number only. We have 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and for example 10. Okay, so values are 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. So, and then the average is 5.5. So that's it. We have already. So the method that did not change the values of an array elements is the find average, because in here we just only use the values of an array elements just to compute for the average, but still the values in our array are still for example 9, 8, 7, 6, to 10. Okay, now let me show you some another example. Okay, but this time um this we have now an array with values already. So for example, we have a array of fruits. We have mango, apple, and then grapes. Now if we are going to pass this to an array, for example, to display the value, so same thing that what we did in a while ago. So if you want to print an array, so again, if we pass, so for example, we have a string array prutas here, and then we have an index, for loop, and then to print, to access all the array elements, for example. So let's try. Okay, if you want to run this program, the output is we have now mango, apple, and grapes. So what I'm trying to show to you is that if ever that inside of main method there is a fruits array having mango and apple and grapes, and then you just let the other methods to print that, for example, the values of an array element. So we can do that by having this one. Okay, and then let's try to modify to have a method, okay, trying to modify the values of an array. So what I did here is that from main method, I passed the fruits array to modify array. So inside of the modify array, I have my fruits array here with a banana, pineapple, and orange. So take note, originally the fruits array have these values, mango, apple, grapes. But what I'm trying to show you again, I'm trying to modify now the values of an array. So we will see if there is an effect now. Okay, what do you think is the output after we modify the array elements inside a modify array method, and then we print an again. Okay, so uh, let's try to run and show it to you. Okay, what have you noticed? So take note that we have now two output statements. So we call the print array twice now. Okay, so the first the first time we call the print array is we print now the original values of a fruits array. And then the second time around, after we call the modify array, since we changed it to banana, pineapple, and orange, and we print it again, take note that all the values of each array elements now have been changed to banana, pineapple, and orange. Okay, so it only proves that every time we pass the array, the entire arrays to a certain method, okay, whatever the modifications happened within that method, it will affect to the original value. Okay, so that's what I'm trying to show to you. Okay, so let's try another example. For example, modify value. This time, we are not going to pass the all the entire array. Okay, what I'm trying to pass here is a single element. For example, the second element, which has the index number 1. So if I'm going to pass that one, okay, make sure that the modify value has the this type of parameter, which is a string, and then since we are expecting only a single value, so we did not create any array here, but instead we have a simple variable, a string frutas here, for example. Okay, so we mean that we are passing now the fruits. Let's say, for example, after the modification, we have now pineapple. So the value of frutas here is pineapple. So we'll see. No, I have um, tried to put here an output statement. So before we assign guava to frutas, for example, what do you think is the output within the modify value, and then right after or later? So we will just have to call the modify value first, since we have an output statement there. Okay, to show to you. Okay, so now we have mango, apple, grapes, banana, pineapple, and then orange. Banana, pineapple, and then orange. Okay, so since we pass the fruit sub index 1, that is with the value is a pineapple, So the first output statement inside a modify value is pineapple. And then after the assignment statement, frutas equals guava. Now, and then we display again the value of frutas. So frutas now has a guava value. Okay, but take note what will happen now to the values of our array. Okay, does it affect to the original values of an array? So we will see. Let's try to run this one, having another print array here. After the modifications that we have here, we modify the value, not the entire array. Okay, that's the only difference. And the output is okay. So take note, the first output statement. So we have here the original values of an array. And then another, the second output statement is after we modify the entire array. That's why we change it to banana, pineapple, orange. And then the next output statement, the pineapple and guava, that's the result of the output statement inside of the modify a value. But take note, after the modifications we made from the modify value method, and we try to display the output, the values of fruits array, it seems that nothing have changed, okay, in our fruits array after the modifications we made inside of the modify value, because in here we only pass the value, not the reference, not the entire array. That's why it has nothing to do with the with the the values of the entire array. So the values of the final value of our array still is banana, pineapple, and orange, not guava, for example. So that's all. That's all that I need to discuss in this episode on how to pass an array to methods. And just to wrap up, just bear in mind that every time we pass an array to a method, if we are passing the entire array, so whatever modifications we made inside of that method, okay, regardless of we use for example a variables different array name there inside of a method, it will still modify the original values of that array, because every time we pass the entire array, we are passing the reference, not the value. Okay, so that's the source code for this episode. And that's all for today. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and consider subscribing. And as always, show your love through comments and favorites. God bless and thank you for watching.